Good evening. We're here for a public hearing. The Board of Commissioners of the City of Mount Juliet will have a public hearing on Monday, March 25th, 2024 at 6:15 p.m. at City Hall on the following items to be considered on second reading. I'll read the three items. The first one is to amend the fiscal year 2023-2024 budget ordinance 2023-24 to appropriate funds for the Curd Road at Mount Juliet Road traffic and Pleasant Grove Road at Central Pike Always Stop Control Project. The second item is to amend the fiscal year 2023-2024 budget ordinance 2023-2024 to accept donations for the police department for the wellness program. And the third item is to amend the fiscal year 2023-2024 budget ordinance 2023-2024 to appropriate funds for the purchase of approximately 1.12 acres located at 1025 Charlie Daniels Parkway from Lineberry Properties Incorporated and Gary Merritt for the Parks Department. The public is invited to attend and comment. Anybody wishing to attend, I'd invite you to come forward to the podium, give your name and address for the record, and you'll be recognized for 3 minutes. Yes, yes ma'am.
It's been a while since I've done this, as I told you. It won't stay down. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, can we just get your name and address, and we'll be ready.
Patricia O'Brien. I live at 668 Northwest Rutland Road, Mount Juliet, Tennessee. And yes, Mount Juliet. And basically, I am nervous, sorry. But basically, I wanted to speak about the traffic light at Curd Road. It sounds like an absolutely fantastic, wonderful thing, and I know it's needed. The issue I have with it is at the proximity of the exit, the only exit of the post office. And if traffic is stopping right there at the red light and you're trying to get out, then if the red light's right at Curd Road, then you're going to have to sit and wait to get out of the post office. And it's really, right now, it's even hard to get out of the post office with anything. And myself was there today. Again, it's very crowded. It has been last week. And today when I left out of there, then I get a slight traffic break. I'm going south, back towards south. And so when I come out, then I have to wait for traffic, and there's a slight break. When the light turns red at East Division and Mount Juliet Road, it breaks the traffic just a little bit, where you have a little bit where you can get out and go in across two lanes. And still at most times you have to hang up in the turning lane until the other traffic coming towards you from the other side, and watch out for all the cars. And it's a bad situation, and it's also challenged by the fact that the post office on a slight curve, you don't have as much visibility as you would if it was straight right out there. And I know the traffic lights needed for people coming out of there, and this was addressed a number of years ago, and they never did anything about it because at the time, I think one of the commissioners had brought it up because there was a bad accident there. And I know it's needed, and I absolutely know that. And if somebody could come up with a good way of working out both issues, because if you get, for instance, Christmas time, and the traffic is, if you have the red light there and traffic is coming to the post office like it does, you can sit there until maybe you pray that somebody will let you out. It's really bad. And it's a real challenge for everybody, that's coming and going there. And that way was for me today too, again. But I step on the gas and get out of there. So basically, I appreciate being here, and it's been like 3-4 years since I was here, and I'm going to see some new faces, and I appreciate all this. And thank you very much for allowing me to speak, and I hope that something can be worked out for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Miss O'Brien. Shane, Matt, I don't know who's the best one to talk about that. If you could maybe talk with Miss O'Brien, but before we get it on here, and then you can speak to that maybe when we hear the item tonight. Just make sure we understand the issues. Anyone else for citizen comments on those three items?
Hey, my name is Rich Eckhart, 5084 Citation Drive, Mount Juliet. I'm here to hear the proposal for the always stop at Pleasant Grove and the road. I'm drawing a blank on it. Thank you.
Central Pike.
Yeah, thank you. My concern is that by putting a stop there, as we all know, people do speed coming over that hill. That's why we're trying to do something to help make that a safer intersection. I'm just concerned that if there are 1 or 2 cars sitting and somebody comes over that hill at 45, 50 miles an hour, they're not going to have time to stop before they hit somebody. But I was hoping to hear the proposal before I made any kind of a statement, but this is the time to talk. So I'm just saying, so now that I'm just concerned about people sitting at that intersection now when cars are speeding coming over the hill.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Anyone else for citizen comments? All right, hearing none, we'll close citizen comments and reconvene at 6:30. Good evening, everyone. Today is March 25th. I hereby call this meeting of the Board of Commissioners to order. We have a quorum present pursuant to City Code 62210. We'll proceed with conducting the business of the City of Mount Juliet. So I'll start again with saying good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for coming to the meeting. It's the Mount Juliet City Commission meeting. My name is James Manus, and on behalf of the commission and the staff, I want to welcome you tonight. Tennessee law gives you and every Tennessean the right to attend the commission meeting and observe how the government is doing business. We appreciate that each and every one of you has taken time out of your personal schedule to be with us here tonight to see how the city government works. Our first item on the agenda is to set the agenda for tonight's meeting. Is there any changes? Commissioner Mullally?
Actually, she was going to say, I think the same thing. Go ahead.
I was wondering if we should pull, let's see, where is it? The 12B, the ordinance to amend revision to the Mount Juliet City Code, Chapter 2, Article 8, Code of Ethics, since we're having a work session on Wednesday and we're not to that point yet.
Well, I think we should defer it. I think this is the date we set for it to reappear on the agenda. So it's action of the board to put it on here.
Because I thought it was 45 days.
I'll have to trust somebody who had the math.
I don't think it.
212.
At this point, it needs to be deferred anyway.
Do you want to just, if we pull it tonight or just reappear on the next agenda? Is there any objection to that? We're going to be the ones voting. All right, without objection, then we'll remove 12B. Any other changes? City Recorder.
Just to clarify, it was 45 days, and this tonight is like 47 days.
Okay.
Wow, that passed fast.
So it'll be a longer deferral. I guess we got to start saying at least. All right, any other changes? All right, without objection, we'll set the agenda as published minus 12B. Next item on the agenda is our invocation and pledge of allegiance. I'd like to ask Mr. Beasley if he would please come forward and lead us in the invocation and pledge.
Thank you, Mayor. If y'all will stand with me. Let's pray. Lord, we thank you for this day. We thank you for everything. We thank you for, first off, our elected officials, Lord. You ask that we keep those as the elected officials in our prayers, Lord. So we just ask that we continue to remember them and the sacrifices that they make each and every day and the decisions that they make and how they can impact our community, Lord. We also pray for our city management, Lord, and the perseverance that it takes to take this job and how they lead by example for the greatest city that we know in Mount Juliet. Lord, we also thank you for our city staff and those that make up our community, Lord. Specifically with our city staff, may we just be reminded every day that our responsibility is to be good stewards of everything that's been entrusted with us from our community, Lord, as our city manager often reminds us. Lord, we also pray a special protection over our police and fire and EMS units that are always actively working to keep our community safe. Lord, we also thank you for Good Friday and Easter coming up and those dates that mean so much to our faith. Lord, we give you the honor, the praise, the glory, and the thanksgiving. It's in your holy and precious name we pray. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, sir. If you need a copy of the agenda, they are at the wire baskets by the door. If you wish to follow along, and if you're watching online, you can. The agenda is also available online as well. Our next item on our agenda for tonight is our approval of the minutes, and this is the set from March 11th, 2024. Motion and a second. Any changes? All right. All in favor of the minutes, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed? The minutes carry. Next item of our agenda is our citizen comments. We just ask, basically 3 simple rules when you're speaking: that you give us your name and address before you speak, that you direct all your comments towards the mayor. If there's anything that we need to follow up on, I may direct a staff member to get with you on those. However, the board's under no obligations to respond to questions from the floor. And we'd also ask that you please avoid improper language, profanity, or inappropriate conduct. With that, I'll open the floor for citizen comments. I'll ask you to come forward to the podium and provide your name and address.
Good evening. I'm Patricia O'Brien. I live 668 Northwest Rutland Road, Mount Juliet, Tennessee. Been there since 1962, a long time. I'd like to speak tonight about the traffic light that's been suggested funding for at Curd Road and North Mount Juliet Road. I know that there is a need for something like that, but the issue that I have, and I have it when I go to the post office, it is very close in proximity, if the red light is there, to the only exit of the post office. And what would happen when heavy traffic is there, the traffic would stop at the red light, and then you would not be able to exit the post office until traffic cleared. It's more difficult if you're going south coming out of there, because then you got to cross 2 lanes, and most of the times I have to do that and then hang up in the turning lane to wait for the other traffic to go by as well. And sometimes when it's pretty heavy, I get a little bit of a break. When the red light at East Division and North Mount Juliet Road is red, it kind of stops the traffic a little bit, where you have a little bit of way you can get out. It's a very busy area. You'd be surprised, but I've been down there this afternoon before 3 o'clock, and there was only like 1, maybe 2 parking spaces in the whole place. And people were coming and going, and also coming and going out of Curd Road, which is pretty busy there. I know there's an issue there, but surely maybe there's some way that, I don't know if it could be worked out to find out a way to work everything out like that. But it's something that it would be very difficult, especially, oh my gosh, Christmas time. You wouldn't be able to get out of the post office. So I appreciate you letting me speak, and it's very nice to be here and see all of you in person. I watch the meetings all the time, and it's a real pleasure for me to be here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. O'Brien.
Hello, Stephen Heckendorf, 393 Page Drive. What is difficult about having citizen comments at the beginning is that it's hard to anticipate necessarily what has been put on the agenda to discuss. So you kind of have to infer kind of what's being looked at, and interpretation is a key part. So I'm here to comment on the ordinance to define the procedure for proposing charter amendments. I believe it would be helpful to potentially have a summary kind of in like a paragraph explaining what the action of passing this ordinance would do for an amendment and referendum. So how I read this new ordinance proposal is that it takes the power from the people, even if they vote one way on the referendum, and puts it back into the hands of the Board of Commission majority. And again, see, it's hard. Again, I have to interpret the intent, so hopefully it'll be clarified in the meeting. So how I read it is, because how it states is that it says any amendment of the City of Mount Juliet Charter shall require the passing of the ordinance first, calling for the amendment and stating its wording with the absolute majority of vote of the body. And then it says the ordinance will be heard for a second reading after the next election. So that's kind of how I understood it. So I'll talk based off of that, because if this was approved as the language stands, again, it's nuanced. I believe it says the majority of the board members at a quorum would be able to pass it and then hand it off to the voters, and then it would come back to the board afterwards to approve of that at a 2/3 majority. And I see a lot of plethora of scenarios playing out, which I don't think are positive. Again, two board of commissioners could be also elected at that same time, which then after the election, they could be affecting the will of the people. So I have concerns on that. You also could have folks passing it and then changing their mind after. So hopefully, again, it looks like maybe that wasn't the intent. So look forward to hearing that a little bit more. I do think that obviously if the idea is that you vote on it give the referendum to the people, and then you come back and vote on it again, yes, it could be damaging to go against the will of the people and vote in a different way, or vote to affirm, deny their power on that referendum. But I also believe that if you were to be elected in that same election, the voter would have to wait 4 years to then make their voice heard against the person they're displeased with. So again, hopefully that will be clarified better. But I believe if that is the stated intent of where you vote on something, hand off the referendum, it's passed by a 55 to 45 margin. And then if the power still remains back to the board to approve of that decision, I wouldn't agree with that. So I just wanted to make my voice heard, and hopefully it'll be further clarified, that section. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Anyone else for citizen comments? All right. Seeing none, we'll close citizen comments. We'll move forward with commissioner comments and reports. Commissioner Justice.
Got it. Thank you, Mayor. Excuse me. Just a couple of things. One of those being the last week we had a banquet that I attended. The Chief Mullins was there. There were several people here. Mr. Beasley was there. It was Everyone's Wilson. And Everyone's Wilson, I don't know if you're very familiar with it, but it is a group of people that the church appoints, whether it be the pastor of the church or a representative from that church, that gets involved in the community, and they try and work really hard to help some of the kids in the school system and several other programs that they're involved in throughout the county. Daryl Crouch is the executive president, I believe is his title with that program, and does an amazing job going to the schools, going to the different organizations throughout Wilson County, and looking for ways to promote a church-based opportunity for helping Wilson County folks. So if you hear that, you start talking about Everyone's Wilson, I want you to know what you're talking about. Look it up, go online. They have a website. I apologize, I don't have it right here in front of me, but very worthwhile organization. You'll be hearing a lot more about them and what they're able to accomplish across the county. On a very sad note, a good friend of mine, George Thomas, has passed away. George Thomas has been a real estate guy, resident of Mount Juliet in West Wilson County for many, many years. And some have talked about him being a real estate icon. And I mean, just, the guy was just been involved in every aspect of real estate throughout his life. His contributions to our city are just way too numerous for me to even begin to list. But I want to say that George Thomas was a true Southern gentleman. It's one of the few left. He was a picture of class, and he was a picture of grace, and he had a heart about him that was bigger than our city. It's always been, and it's always going to be, my honor to call him my friend. Mayor, if you'll indulge me just a second, I want to read his obituary, if I may. George Lee Thomas III, age 80, of Mount Juliet, Tennessee, passed away March the 22nd, 2024. George was born in Burlington, North Carolina, to the late George and Isabel Thomas. He was a graduate of Castle Heights Military Academy, class of 1961. He was employed at DuPont for 15 years before opening his own real estate company, George Thomas Realty, in 1982. He was a member and past president of the Eastern Middle Tennessee Association of Realtors and a member of the National Association of Realtors. He was on the Wilson Bank and Trust Advisory Board for many years. He was a member of Christ Church in Nashville. George and he and I had numerous conversations. He loved 1960s doo-wop music. Some of you may remember that. And he always enjoyed playing bingo and was always the bingo caller at the family holiday gatherings. George had a deep love of baseball and softball, and he never missed his grandchildren's games, home or away. And no matter how far of a distance he had to travel to see them, didn't matter. He coached in the Mount Juliet Little League program for over 35 years and was an avid fan of the Atlanta Braves. And he was preceded in death by his son, George Lee Thomas IV, survived by his wife, Dora Thomas, daughters, Jeannie Thomas and Wendy Eakes. Grandchildren are Adam Thomas, Joe Thomas, Dylan Eakes, and Katie Eakes. Sister Becky Thomas, and that does add in here that he had two beloved cats, Blackie and Whitey, and his dog, Lester. The funeral services will be conducted 1 o'clock on Wednesday. It's March 27th at Bond Memorial Funeral Chapel with Pastor Chuck Groover officiating. Any visitation, if you want to go by and see the family, be from 4 o'clock to 8 o'clock on Tuesday, March 26th, and 11 to 1 on Wednesday at Bond Memorial. I'm going to stop short of the rest of it. As I said, George Thomas has been my friend for many, many years. George Thomas and I worked together at the Little League program down here for the baseball for those kids. He loved that program. He loved those kids. Even when his kids had moved on, his grandkids came up there to play, and he was just as involved then. It was even involved after his grandkids to some degree. He's going to be missed. So our hearts and our prayers go out to the family of George Thomas and the Eakes, Stan Eakes, and his wife Wendy was his daughter. So, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Next, we'll recognize Vice Mayor Trevette.
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks for everyone coming out tonight and also online. It's always great to see our citizens get involved and of course get up and even talk tonight. So it's great to see the different generations. I didn't want to go any further on that one, but different generations that we have that's within the city. So thank you all for expressing your concerns as well. So I wanted to send out some congrats to Mount Juliet Police officers. It looked like we got 3 new officers that's completed the enforcement training academy. So I know that was sent out about a week and a half ago, but it's great to see that our team is growing. And of course, we're looking for some of the best talent out there. So just great job to our new chief and deputy chief and everything that they're doing for our city. I know we just did a ribbon cutting for one of our parks, Mr. Rocky and his team out there. I'll tell you, they're moving and shaking. They're doing whatever we can to bring our community together in these great parks, and even using the parks for even this past weekend for the Easter egg hunt. That's some great job to them. The staff and all the dedication that they put into it. Let's see here. I apologize for going down a list. I just was making a lot of it as I was going through. Over the last, every meeting that we have, we always talk about, keeping our businesses, shopping local and everything. Over the last couple of weeks, as we move into the spring weather and everything starts to bloom and you start to see the, all the pretty colors and all the trees, starting to bloom, it kind of brings your attention to a couple of things about how blessed we are for our city. And actually, when I first got on this board, I started asking Mr. Martin and some other staff members about, these boxes that are wrapped, and it's local businesses investing back. Yes, it's a little bit of advertisement, but all the red, white, and blue. And I'll tell you, just tonight, I was noticing from the time I left my house until I got to this building tonight, I actually counted over 83 red, white, and blue flags in this city, just from my neighborhood to here. So I just think about how blessed we are as a community, as a city, and how much time that's involved with, the patriotism, that we all express, especially with the way our country is. There's a lot of dividing as well as throughout what's going across the world and the rest of the country on the outer borders. So, and then of course there's been some recall for our military. So please keep them in your thoughts and prayers as they have to go back to getting back into the groove of things with the military. So just keep those men and women as they have to go back into active duty. Keep them in your prayers and also their families. Let's see here. Also, just want to wish all the families a happy Easter and a good Friday as we move in, and just remember, the reason for the season. Like we always tend to think about some of these things. We get caught up in the advertisement of the candies and the different things, but just take into, thought what we all celebrate. If you are a religious person, and just appreciate what we do have in this great country. So, Mayor, that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next, we'll recognize Commissioner Hefner.
Thanks, Mayor. Appreciate that. I do appreciate everybody coming out this evening and those watching online. Appreciate you tuning in. Just a couple of quick updates, things worth mentioning. We have an ethics workshop coming up, which is a collaboration between the BOC and the members on the ethics committee. That meeting's coming up Wednesday, I believe, 6 p.m. Is that correct? So it is open to the public, so feel free to come out. We're in the process of reviewing and revamping our ethics ordinance. So really good submissions that have come in that we're going to be reviewing and hopefully settling on one that's going to hit all the points. Also want to actually saw, are we calling it Costco now? I guess we can call it Costco, not Project Prosper. I saw the secret's out. So I saw the sign up on the building. That was, I don't know when they put that up, but it was within the last week, maybe. So that was kind of exciting to see Costco finally on those tilted brick walls. Shop local, as always. This is where it's funding the engine of what we call the City of Mount Juliet. Happy Easter to those that celebrate Easter. And also, one last thing I want to encourage, and I've said this time and time again, encourage those. We're in an election year. We've got 3 seats on the board that are up. I encourage anyone and everyone that's interested in participating and getting involved at the city local level to pull a petition and run. It's not as easy as you think, but I do encourage you, any of you that are interested in, feel free to reach out to me. Happy to drive you down there. I've made that before. That's not a joke. I will drive you down to the election office, help you pull the petition, fill out the paperwork. That's how strongly I feel about citizens getting involved at the local level. So with all that being said, I conclude my report, Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Mullally, recognized.
Thank you. Next newsletter will go out next Monday on the 1st. Walk Across Wilson launched yesterday. If you don't know what that is, it's the equivalent of walking all the way around Wilson County, which is about 38 miles. So it started yesterday. The link is on Facebook, but you don't have to have Facebook. If you need the link, just let me know and I'll be glad to send it to you. The idea is to get out and stop sitting around and get active. That's the idea. And so it lasts for 4 weeks, 30 minutes a day of doing some kind of activity. Doesn't have to be walking, could be any kind of physical activity for 4 weeks, which that ends up being equivalent of walking all the way around Wilson County. So again, if you need that link, just let me know. April 1st, the water fountains for the dog park will be turned on. Yeah. And just wanted you to know that they'll have water. Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll recognize our city manager for his comments.
Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Board of Commissioners. Thanks, everybody, for showing up tonight, coming out and participating in our process. Those watching at home that couldn't be here. And just thanks for everything everybody does. I'll also like to send out our thoughts and prayers to the George Thomas family and also the Sonny Tillman family, who we lost as well here in Mount Juliet, and any resident that's lost a loved one in our great city, and those dealing with sick family members. We all have to deal with that as human beings, and we know that's tough. So we're thinking about you and praying for you daily. Also, talk about shop local. That is important. Tonight, for example, we've got folks in the audience here that are either looking to invest in our community or have invested in our community. And we know, as Commissioner Hefner said, that's the engine that drives our community, just like all communities. In ours, it's even more so because of our low property tax, which I'm very proud of. I commend the commission and our citizens for us teaming up together to make our city what it is, all with low taxes. So very thankful for that. And as the police department would like to say, especially this time of year with spring weather coming, I want to thank everybody for the walk across Wilson County this past weekend, and for the folks who are able to show up and participate in that. A lot of fun. And I think the citizens love seeing that as well, that we're doing that. And with that in mind, as a walker myself. I know the police department preaches it, our chief and our deputy chief, but have a whole lot more kids out, a lot of parents taking their kids to a lot of different sporting events and running through parking lots. And a good friend of mine this weekend got a good scare, and I didn't tell him I was going to say this, but they're just wonderful parents. One of their little kids got away from them, and she's small, and by the time they realized it, she was immersed in a crowd of other people. And you imagine as a parent how you feel about something like that. And it happened so quick. Your mind goes to the worst of things, thinking something terrible's happened. And fortunately, they located her. So just give a shout out to folks that are out there to just please be mindful. Luckily, some other parents found this little girl that had just inadvertently wandered away, no fault of the parents. But you're going to have walkers, you're going to have runners, you're going to have joggers, you're going to have people bicycling. So that's why I appreciate what the BPAC does here in Mount Juliet. Not only encouraging the awareness to get out and take care of yourselves because there's only one you, but also to encourage people to be on the lookout. This time of year, unfortunately, pedestrian crashes. Commissioner Justice, you'll understand that as well as anybody being a reconstructionist, is that happens. And when it happens, there's no way of taking it back. And oftentimes people are either distracted or speeding. And if that gets found out, or any kind of bad data that comes from the black box of your vehicle, it sort of tells on you. It's like a detective riding with you, and it's hard to escape that. And once that happens, there's no way of taking it back. And I've been on those scenes, and I've seen that happen before, and people feel awful about it. But at that point, you can't take it back. So, and also to park safe. This time of year, a lot of the ladies in particular will travel. You've got your window down, not really paying attention to your surroundings. And we know we just have to be more aware with that, and also where you park at. So just felt like that was appropriate. I want to thank the police department, fire department, all our departments, public works, and the fine men that are here tonight to keep everybody safe. Thank you for what you do, for going above and beyond for our community. And that's why I do think it makes it such a wonderful place to call home. God bless everybody. And that concludes my report.
All right. Thank you, sir. Item number 10A, an ordinance to amend the fiscal year 2023-2024 budget ordinance 2023-24 to appropriate funds for the Curd Road and Mount Juliet Road traffic signal and Pleasant Grove Road at the Central Pike All-Way Stop Control Project. Have a motion and a second. The item's on the floor. Commissioner Justice.
Mayor, we had asked for and received some information in regard to the traffic statistics over the past 5 years from that location. So what I'd like to do, if we could, is to make a motion to divide.
Want to divide, the motion is to divide the Curd Road versus the Central Pike?
Yes, sir, just so we can discuss both.
All right, we have a motion to divide. I'll second. Any questions or comments on the advisement of dividing the two? All right, all in favor of division, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Yeah, we're divided. Let's take the Curd Road one first, just simply because it's listed first. Any questions or comments on the Curd Road traffic? Mr. White, you had a talk just earlier about the post office over there. Could you catch us up on that?
Absolutely. So I agree with Miss Patricia, and I am concerned about the vehicles exiting the post office and having a difficult time doing so. So when we were going through the design of this project, we met with the post office several times, the postmaster, in fact. We tried to convince them to realign their driveway to Curd Road so that people exiting post office could get to the traffic signal and safely turn left onto Mount Juliet Road. The postmaster was against it. We tried convincing them. We even offered to pay to realign their drive for them. The postmaster, I don't know if it's the same one at the time, but she was completely against it for whatever reason. She wouldn't allow it, and we can't force them. It's their property. It's federal property. But we did attempt. I can try reaching out again to see, because this has been on pause for a couple of years. So
Yeah.
I can always reach out again and attempt, but we definitely can't guarantee anything.
Yeah, it's probably going to be a problem. Do you have any other recommendations beyond the realignment?
There's really not. I mean,
Yeah.
they only have so much road
Right.
frontage on Mount Juliet Road.
All right.
I really don't have anything.
Anyone else have any questions for Mr. White? Vice Mayor?
What a roundabout work right there. Sorry, I just thought I'd get to break the atmosphere in the room. Sorry, Mayor. I apologize.
Commissioner Hefner?
outside of a roundabout, I mean, you're the engineer, right? I mean, doing nothing, I don't know, I know that's an option, but we've had several accidents
I know
at that
that
corner.
I mean, that
What-
intersection needs a signal. It's bad. There's a lot of queuing on Curd Road, and it needs a signal. And I don't think we can wait any longer.
Okay.
Yeah, all we can do is reach out to the post office again and try. And I encourage Miss Patricia to also reach out with her concerns. The more people that can reach out to them, maybe they'll change their mind. But
Can we invite them down here and talk to them about some of their concerns? Or Kenny, can you? Okay.
Mr. White, in your professional opinion, do the benefits outweigh the issues?
I think so, because Curd Road's our road. We have to provide
Have to take care.
better traffic flow on Curd Road.
And also too, might be worth mentioning, I know it's still up in the air, but that may get relocated to Hill
It
Street
could, yeah, in the future.
or Caldwell.
Yeah.
Which would eliminate that. But I don't know. Again, that's a big question mark, but it is a dangerous intersection. But okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Any other questions or comments on the ordinance, the budget ordinance for Curd Road? All right. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed? That carries. I'll read the same item again. We'll call it, I guess, 10AA. An ordinance to amend the fiscal year 2023 budget 2024 to appropriate funds for the Pleasant Grove Road Central Pike Always Stop Control Project. And we'd already gotten that one on the floor. We divided. So back on that item, any questions or comments about Central Pike? Commissioner
I'd like
Justice?
to- If I could, I'd like to restate my concerns that there is a hill there that we actually had talked to a developer about taking that hill down because of the dangerous location. The fact that there's a hill, you go over the hill, and what we're proposing is to put a stop sign or a stop of some type, whether it be a light or I'm assuming it's a stop sign. It's an all-way stop location. It's blind, so the people coming over that hill, as they coming over top of that hill, not used to it, we're looking for accidents at that point. I know we're talking about some engineering. We're talking needing traffic engineering expertise is what we're needing. With Mr. Barlow having taken a position at TDOT, I think our traffic engineering probably is not where it was at that point. Mr. White and then the other engineers, I don't really specialize in traffic as Mr. Barlow is. What I'm trying to say is not a slight to you at all, Mr. White, but we had asked that be taken down by a developer at one point. I think at this point we need to tell that developer to take this down. I don't believe critical at this point. I don't believe it's timing is critical that we get in there and do this quickly. We'd asked Mr. White to come up with statistics from the Titan network that we've got that our police department uses. And over the last 5 years, there's 12 crashes at that location. 12 sounds like a big number until you put it over 5 years and it comes to 2.4 crashes per year as it stands today. There only 2 of those 12 had injuries. So I think I've heard engineers tell me just in a meeting just recently as of last week that there is 0 acceptable level of accidents and fatalities. They didn't want it, but we all know that that's not realistic. And 2.5 crashes per year at what we feel like is a critical intersection turns it into a non-critical intersection. So I think we need to revisit how we do this. I believe putting a stop sign at the bottom of that hill puts us into more danger than we currently are in going over that hill. So I was just asked to reconsider this, and let's, if nothing else, let's put it off and get additional studies done and say we can't get the engineer or the developers to come in and do what we'd asked them to do originally. Take the hill down, that is.
Commissioner, you make a good point there, and I was, I guess, surprised at the limited. It's not limited. If you're the one in the accident, it's definitely not limited in any way. But the numbers on that, we were before the roundabout went in there for Louis Station, I think that's the 5-year period matches the annual period for the entrance of that neighborhood in terms of crashes. So I was a little surprised by the number of those, given the challenges of that intersection. And I don't want to make light of anyone's having an accident there, but there is an interesting book called Confessions of a Recovering Engineer. And the premise of the book is sometimes when you engineer things to make them safer, you actually wind up making them more dangerous by giving people the appearance of safety. And I suspect the limited number in scope of the danger of that intersection, there's less accidents there because people perceive danger when they're going to pull out. Nobody willy-nilly turns left off Pleasant Grove onto Central Pike. Well, you don't do it very often if you do, but that's just my suspicion is the inherent danger of that intersection provides for some of the safety because people approach it with I guess with a more concern of safety at it because the danger can be quickly perceived turning there. My concern with putting a stop sign there is the stop sign generates the perception that you're safe because you don't have to worry about somebody coming across that hill. I know we had a little disagreement on the rear ends versus the T-bones or whatever. I don't think we disagreed. I think we're just saying it differently. But I think encouraging people to pull out there with a stop sign, implying that they're going to be safe with a stop sign and the car coming across the hill, I'm not as worried about the rear end causing accident as I would be somebody pulling out with a perceived sense of safety with a stop sign there and getting T-boned. That's my concern on it. And I'll let anyone else weigh in. Mr. Hefner.
For Mr. White. Did we get TDOT's sign off on the all-way stop sign?
We did. They said we can install any signage or intersection control that the city wishes on their state route.
So they didn't express any concerns?
As long
about
as we had to prove that it was warranted, and it got warranted by a traffic study based on the limited sight distance, not based on traffic numbers, but based on limited sight distance.
And they had no concerns over the hill?
They did not.
Okay.
They didn't express them to me if they did.
And are we putting any, and I think you said this in the first reading, we are going to put flashing yield signs, upcoming stops, maybe in rumble strips, or what we're going to take some measures to maybe even reduce the speed. I don't know. I'm sure there's some other.
We're doing flashing beacons on all the signage and overhead flashing beacons above the roadway. Reflective strips on all the signs. So on the stop sign, it makes it stand out a little bit more. Rumble strips in the road so they feel the bump, so they know something's coming up, some kind of change is coming up ahead.
I know it's a state road. Can we put speed calming other than rumble strips? Can we do speed calming to reduce the speed so as they're approaching that hill, they're actually forcing them to slow down?
I haven't asked TDOT that question yet, if they allow speed humps or those types
Speed calming
of
measures.
I'm not sure.
I would
on
be
that.
curious to find out if that's something that we could do, because that would certainly help slow those cars coming over that hill.
Yeah.
That's all I have. That would be good.
Anyone else?
Just one more quick.
Yes, sir.
One of the concerns that I've had on Central Pike the entire time is one of the reasons I have never voted positively for any development over there. You've heard me say this numerous times. I mean, the hundreds of accidents that I personally worked wrecks at that location or on that road were generally speed related, where the speed was abused. When you have a speed and an intersection location, you're doubling the opportunity for an accident at that location. I mean, it could be rear end versus T-bone, but an accident's an accident at this point. So what I'm asking for is that we eliminate the opportunity for the accident by taking away that intersection's fallibilities, take away the opportunity by taking that hill down. That's what we originally said to do to begin with, and that's probably the safest thing that we were going to be able to do at that location. I believe TDOT did even talk about that when we talked about doing it as a result of a developer coming in and doing the work. Did they not, Matt?
So, yeah, TDOT's planning to take the hill down with the interchange project.
Yeah. So
At the time when we were having discussions with the developer, we were thinking the interchange was going to be 2026, 2027, because that was the timeline at the time. As you know, it's gotten pushed back to 2030 at this point. So at the time, Andy thought the interchange was coming soon. We'll just let TDOT fix the hill. We'll do some type of improvement in the interim until the interchange comes. So that's why Andy and Commissioner Hefner agreed to let's do this alternate plan here, and then the interchange will come and do the ultimate fix.
well, again, I think what we're finding, and I believe you'll agree, is the change is what's going to be the dangerous part. I mean, if we leave it as it is, we know we're going to get what we got, and these are the statistics that bear that out. And it's 2.4 crashes per year. If we change that location and we change anything to do with that location, there are people that don't travel it every day that are not going to be familiar with it, that are going to wind up coming over that hill, and they're going to be ignoring, late at night, whatever traffic conditions may be, whatever weather conditions may be, they're not going to be watching.
It's really the people who drive it every day are the issue, because they drive it every day and they know there's never a stop sign there, and then all of a sudden there's a stop sign.
And then all of a sudden a stop sign is there, and then we have somebody who's one vehicle that is wearing another vehicle as a hood ornament, and we already know what we got. The unknown is what scares us, and the unknown is something that I have seen in the past, just because of what I did for a living. I think we need to approach this slower pace and see if we can't find another solution, as opposed to putting up a stop sign and praying. So I won't be voting in favor of this. I believe there's other opportunities, and I don't believe we're actually put in a position where we have to do something today.
Vice Mayor Trevette.
Yeah, Mr. White, I have to agree with Commissioner Hefner when it comes to some alternatives. Maybe even if we did some type, I'd really like for you to be able to reach back out to the state and see if there's some options there. I mean, because if we did maybe both, right? If we look at maybe those strips to be putting down with the stop sign, maybe a couple, 100 feet back, whatever, is best practice, what we've been doing within the city with the stop sign to be able to grab that, obviously this was put back on a developer to, kind of clean up this mess. That's why it was kind of pushed through. I think that was one of the perks there, was be able to, the city wouldn't have to come in and have to do this. But in the meantime, until that project moves forward, we have to come up with a solution. So I do like that option. As much as I kind of would like to get and vote on this tonight, I'd like to see what the state comes back on, and maybe if we deferred this. I hate to push the bucket down the road a little bit further, but if we can get the states, some additional options here, so that way we kind of make sure that we are at least looking out for the best interest of the residents that are close by, that travel it every day, and versus the residents, like you said, the ones that are not familiar with it, that's coming up or down a hill. We're all cautious, right? We're not familiar with the area, but complacency gets us all. So, and then of course confidence, right? You're very familiar with the road. It's late at night, and this route, you've been doing it, for the last 10 years. So it's kind of like something you can do in your sleep. And then all of a sudden, magically, something's there. So I'd like to get some more information on it, just to be able to see what the state can back up as well.
Well, I'm going to make a motion that we defer this for 60 days, at least 60 days to appear on the next agenda after 60 days, and to give staff time to work with TDOT on questions like the rumble strips, if we can do anything for us, traffic calming there, anything that we can do to help maybe make this change more prominent.
We are doing the rumble strips already.
Okay.
But I think Commissioner has some
Speed humps.
additional, maybe speed.
Yeah.
speed cushion or something.
whatever they will allow. And Commissioner Justice there second that. Ms. Trepner?
Want to add one more to that is if we can get back with the developers and find out. I know it's in the ordinance. There was a time frame for them to have that completed. I know we talked about alternative measures given TDOT's time frame of December or 2026, 27. I would like to go back to the developers and see what their timeline is to come back in and take that hill down. They may come back and say whatever they're going to say, but I would like to get their input on it since they're the ones that
Last time we talked to them, they were just on pause, and so they're not in any hurry because the interest rates or something, whatever reason they gave us, their development's on pause right now. So
okay. And what that
they're
was,
not starting construction anytime soon, is what he said. So,
does that, I don't know. It's a Gino.
so that's why
question.
you said let's do a city project, let's get it done, and
Right.
then they can reimburse us back whenever they want to start back their project.
Okay. Yeah, and I don't know if that was a couple of months ago, so I don't know if that, or a month ago, whatever that was.
Yeah.
I don't know if their financing has come through or not, but I'll reach out to them, or both of us. You and I can both reach out to them and find out.
All right. Vice Mayor?
Matt, one more quick question for you. So these stop signs or these lights, are they going to be like solar? They're going to be flashing, 24/7?
Yeah, flashing 24/7.
Okay. And then is there any residents within that area that could be, affected? I'm just kind of curious because some of
Yeah,
these
there's
houses are
some.
pretty close.
Yeah, there's homes on Central Pike and Pleasant Grove Road right there.
Have they expressed any concerns about
Um,
positive
I'm
against
not
it?
sure if they're aware of it.
Okay. Thank you.
All in favor of deferral for 60 days, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That item is deferred for 60 days. Next item on the agenda is an ordinance amending the fiscal year 2023-2024 budget ordinance 2023-24 to appropriate funds for the purchase of the property located at 1025 Charlie Daniels Parkway, map 54, parcel 114.03, being approximately 1.12 acres from Library Properties Incorporated and Gary Merritt for the Parks Department.
Second.
Motion and second. Items on the floor. Anyone wishes to be recognized? All right. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? 10B carries. 10C is an ordinance to amend the fiscal year 2023-24 budget ordinance 2023-24 to accept the donation for the police department for the wellness program.
Motion.
A motion and a second. You need discussion on 10C. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? 10C carries. The next item is 11A, an ordinance to conduct a referendum to establish term limits for the Board of Commissioners. Motion and
Second.
a second. The item's on the floor. As a sponsor, you have the right to speak first.
Thank you, Mayor. So this was, with one slight change, was the original ordinance that I brought back in 3 some odd years ago. The change that was made from the previous version was the terms are limited to 3 in total. These are 3 elected terms. Any appointment years would not count towards the 3 elected terms. So you can be appointed, run at the next election. So these are 3 term. They're not concurrent. So it's just 3 total terms, consecutive. Thank you. So they're not, they're just 3 total terms, elected terms. Also, this would take, the way it is written, this would be a referendum that would go on the next available ballot, which is coming up this November.
All right. Commissioner Mullally, you were recognized.
Okay, thanks. Why am I opposed to term limits in Mount Juliet and the referendum ordinance? Term limits take away the incentive to pay attention and the accountability away from the voter. If this were to pass the BOC and get out and put on the ballot in November, let's say it were to pass by 51%, even by 1 vote, That means that 49% of the population would no longer have a voice after any member reaches their limit to keep a person in the seat that they may otherwise choose to support. Their voice would be silenced. They would be forced to choose between a selection of all new people with no experience whose platforms would be that they promised to do something. There would be no voting records to examine. There would be no experience to base a vote on. Imagine an all-new board with the most experience being 2 to 4 years max, with the rest of the board being brand new. That could prove to be a very risky thing and take the city in a direction it doesn't need to go. Experience does matter. When you hire in the corporate world, you hire experience to fill a position. Experience matters. It all comes down to voter accountability. If the voter's duty and responsibility, it's the voter's duty and responsibility to pay attention and hold elected officials accountable based on their voting records, behaviors, attitudes, good, bad decisions, their investment in the community, and so on. When you don't pay attention, but yet keep voting for the same people without looking into their voting records and everything else, that's a direct result of a lack of voter accountability. And that is how you get career politicians. Career politicians are not created by a lack of term limits. Career politicians are the direct result of a lack of voter participation and a lack of voters holding them accountable. If they're not doing their job, the people elected them to do. Term limits will benefit no one. There is not one advantage, not one right, not one choice that you would have that you don't already have. You and the entire city right now have 100% of the voting power. Sorry, I'm losing my voice. Each voice is equal every 4 years. Term limits won't give you anything. Term limits take away from after you surrender your power to the government. You had the control, but if this were to pass, now the government has it. Term limits silences a portion of the population. If a voter wants to keep their commissioner or the mayor or both, then they should have the right to vote for them if they feel that they're the best choice for that position. If you don't want that commissioner or mayor, then you vote against them and choose someone else. That's how it works, and that's what's, fair to everyone. Anything else is solely based on opinion and implementing more government regulation. In a sense, term limits would be handing over your power that you now hold to the government, only to tell you that at the end of these terms, you can no longer vote for the person that you want. In an article in the Chronicle 2 or 3 years ago, Commissioner Hefner said, quote, "If you can't get it done in 8 years, you need to move on." This is nothing but opinion based on inexperience. It doesn't work that way in government. Many times it takes years to see a project you supported or sponsored through to completion. That's just how government works, unfortunately. Now he's changed his position. Instead of his 2-term limit, he wants to expand it now to 3 terms. His opinion is this is enough for anyone. Remember, we're not talking about the state level or the national level. We're talking about at the local level in a city of 40,000 people. He also stated, quote, "It is extremely hard to run against an incumbent. This happens all the time. It's part of how the voting system works. Term limits are not needed to open the opportunity for someone to run. Anyone at any time can choose to run for office. Believe me, if I can do it, you can too." Commissioner Hefner was also quoted saying he had to put his own money into his campaign, and a lot of people don't have that luxury. Well, I'm not rich by any means, but I put my own money into my campaign 2 times. 95% of it was self-funded by me, and the other 5% from donations from constituents and family. You don't have to have a lot of money to run for office in Mount Juliet. You just don't. It just depends on how much you want to put into it. He also stated in the article that he is up for election again in 2024. And if he chooses to run again and was elected, quote, that would be my last term. I'm going to live by my own words. We'll see if that happens. But a portion of that, what he said, I agree with. And that was if he chooses to run again. That part I fully agree with, because it should be up to each one of us to decide whether or not we want to run again and not have our own government tell us that our time is up. One more sentence. That's the voter's job at the end of each 4-year term.
Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Commissioner. You know, this has been on the agenda. I think this will be the second time. Is that correct? I think is what it is. And obviously, like when I first got involved with government, and I won't be as long, and no, but it was a lot of good information, so that's no knock. But I just want to kind of rehash something. So when I first got involved with government, obviously, like we were right in the middle of our own national election, and big government. I'll tell you, for the folks that that all follow some type of politics, we see what happens in Congress and everything, and it's kind of like once you get in, you don't get them out, right? But with local government, like we start to see things, right? For example, just a couple of years ago when the state went from 13 to 15 cent, and then of course our city, we went backwards. Why? Because we had a reserve. That's what government's all about. Is to like local government affects our pocketbook right here and there. Every day that we wake up, we go out, we shop, we buy. We live in our city, we live in the county. It affects us. So for me, when I sat down with the commissioner, District 3, Commissioner Hefner, that was something that I was very passionate about. And then over the last couple months, I started asking more questions and understanding, hey, I do see both sides of the fence. I really do. Because there's both points, at the end of the day, the citizens should have a right to determine whether or not if a veteran of the seat, as some folks are, they have got experience. And for me, being first time in office, it takes a lot. And just like for everyone up here, it takes, a couple months, if not a year. And for maybe even for some folks, it may take a little bit longer to get your feet wet and get in the door to understand the process, unless you were in some type of government agency or in some form throughout there. Sorry, there's some background noise back there. Sounds like they're building. But anyways, I was talking to the mayor and also Mr. Marchetti about some things. And this is why I'm on the fence, okay? Because there's an opportunity here where the citizens can go ahead and pull a petition, and that number can be modified, going out and getting some folks to sign off on something to basically pull a petition to remove you in office. So in a sense, that is a form of term limits, right? You can be voted in by the citizens because you could be the only one on the ballot, or else you could be just the strongest person. Like I spoke to one of the residents in the audience earlier today. You could be a really good person to throw out a good campaign, but then at the same time, you could be a knucklehead once you get in office and make bad choices for the citizens and also your district. So, something that I know the mayor's going to be bringing up, and I don't want to steal his thunder, but I do want to say this. I still don't know how I'm going to vote until I have to vote here in a couple of minutes. But one thing I do want to point out is that, there's other options out there, and I'm really on 50-50. I'm at 51-49 on this because it is a very passionate subject. We want to make sure the citizens understand that by no means does anybody want to take this seat up here. We don't do it for the money. We do it because of the love of our community, our love of our neighborhood, and everything else. So these folks up here, I can't speak for all of them, but I can say this. We do this because we want the best for our citizens. Okay. So that's all I want to put out there. And Mayor, I'll hand back over to you. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, sir. Commissioner Justice.
I just want to point out what we're talking about tonight is not a vote to approve term limits. What we're talking about tonight is an opportunity for the citizens to be able to decide for themselves what they want. And I've said this numerous times. Anytime that I have an opportunity to get more information and more input from the people that I represent, I want that opportunity. And I can't think of a better way of getting that input than asking the citizens what they want to do by allowing them to vote. That's what we went through. I'm not going to call it a civil war, but it was pretty heated at one point when we went through the home rule debate many years ago. You know, some wanted it, some didn't want it. I don't know. I was personally was for it. Again, I felt like if we could get information from the people that we represent directly with a vote of the ballot, then that made more sense to me and gave me more of an opportunity to represent them. Now, I will tell you that term limits, that the horses done got out of the barn for me. I've been up here 21 years, as the mayor reminded me the other day. So it's a little tough for me to sit here and tell you that I believe in term limits, except for to tell you that the voters to me are term limits. They make the determination as to whether or not I stay or whether or not I go. If I'm doing a job that is acceptable and they vote me back in, then I will continue to be here. If they say term limits, well, 3 terms, I think, is what we're talking about. That's 12 more years. And I'm pretty sure at that point, I'm going to be sitting somewhere on the front of a boat with a fishing pole. I love the people of Mount Juliet, but I don't love them that much that I'm going to stay here the rest of my life. And I've been proud and honored to represent the city of Mount Juliet in the district that I live in, District 1. I personally am not going to vote if it's on the ballot for term limits. Again, I believe the voters are the ones who make that decision. But again, in this particular case, I'm not going to turn down an opportunity to hear what the voters have to say by telling them I don't want their input. I want their input. Then I get to make a decision after it's on the ballot as to whether or not, after I hear from them, we can move on from there. Any information I can get makes me better at what I do. Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah, I'll say last week I listened for a long time about if it's a referendum, you have to vote for it basically to give the citizens a vote on it. And I watched one get voted down right in front of me. But I've gotten 3 calls about the subject. 2, one was just opposed to term limits. One was opposed to term limits at the local level. The most interesting call was the third one. And the lady let me know that we should have term limits because politicians are like diapers and they need to be changed regularly and for the same reason. So I said, well, I understand what you're saying or implying that we're full of, but I said, if you have a baby in a diaper, would you leave your baby in that diaper that was full of said substance for 12 years? It's like, of course not. You would take action to change that diaper immediately. And I know the vice mayor alluded to that. That I do have something I will be bringing here soon to easily facilitate the changing of dirty diapers when necessary by the citizenry of this. I also took a look at, and I didn't have my facts exactly straight the last time I talked about this, but I went back and looked at it. The average stay up here at the Board of Commissioners across the board, and I think you may be the longest active one right now, and almost your third term, consecutive term. Yeah, third consecutive term. I'm in my first term. You're being elected to your first full term, and you're being on your first full term as well. But I looked at the average stay of the commissioners across the time period of the city, and it comes out to about a 5-year stay. So I'm like, what problem are we trying to solve here at the same time? So I don't want to take away from the ability to do something by somebody, but if it's a problem, I mean, you look at Congress, it seems like, well, some of them were around for the signing of the Declaration of Independence, it feels like, but it's just not an issue that it seems to be that we're having up here. That's just my 2 cents on it. So, Commissioner Hefner.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate the comments, Commissioner Justice, and you did bring up the most important point in this, and that's, whether we hear from 2 constituents, 3 constituents, or a dozen constituents, I want to hear from the citizens collectively, and the only way to do that is through a referendum during election time. And that's the appropriate time to do this. And I'll accept, obviously, whatever the outcome of what the citizens of Mount Juliet want. If they want no term limits and they feel like they have an opportunity to vote somebody out or in, they have the opportunity to do that. But I want, this is not my personal feelings or opinions on it, but it's more of letting the citizens decide the future of Mount Juliet and the elected officials here in Mount Juliet. As far as the problem to solve, I didn't really say there was a problem, but you can't put a seatbelt on after you've been ejected from a car. So if there hasn't been an issue or a problem to solve, let's ensure that we have a constant change at the elected local level after 12 years. And yes, I did say if you can't get it done in 8 years, you need to move on. I also said if you did a great job in 8 years, you should move on as well to something bigger and better. There's a lot of talented, very worthy citizens in Mount Juliet that would do just as great a job as we're all doing up here, that would like the opportunity. And there are some advantages and disadvantages of being an elected official going for re-election versus an incumbent, going against an incumbent. They're there. We've got PIO officers now. We've got, there's lots of things that would make it difficult for an incumbent, or excuse me, a candidate running against an incumbent. This is just, again, going back to my original point, and Commissioner Just, appreciate you for making that clear. This is not about my personal opinions or anybody else's up here, what they feel term limits for or against. It's a matter of letting the citizens of Mount Juliet decide what they want, and that's the best way to facilitate that. If they don't want term limits, then they have the opportunity to kill it at the election. That's it.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Nay. The ordinance is defeated. The next item on the agenda is 12A, an ordinance to rezone approximately 8.3 acres of property at Lebanon Road and North Green Hill Road, map 53, parcel 4041, from CRC and CG to CRC PUD, and to adopt a preliminary master development plan for the Green Hill Road commercial. Motion. And a second. The item's on the table. Questions or comments? Commissioner Justice.
I have been in a couple of meetings already over this. One is lays this afternoon, and I'm looking forward to all of this being moved forward. I think it's safe to say that we've got 2 contracts that are inked that we can talk about. I'm looking at the developers in the back. So Wawa is one, which is a C-store, convenience store at that location. Never understood that name, but I hear it's a very good brand. So the other is Chick-fil-A. And I've often said, and I'm well known for saying that I don't want Providence north of the interstate, but I do like the idea of having some of what Providence has north of the interstate. So I'm looking forward to getting some of that over here on the north side, over here by North Green Hill High School. There are some traffic challenges that have been presented, and those are being worked through as we speak, actually. And our guys are on it. And as well, I think there is going to be some conversation with the state as to how to approach this further. And hopefully we can come to a good, solid conclusion on that. Can I mention the other one that has not been inked yet? Or is it Waffle House? Which I'm so looking forward to a Waffle House on my side of town too. So that is the north version of fine dining. So hopefully we get a thumbs up on that pretty quick.
Okay. Any other comments before we vote?
Yeah, I got a couple
Vice
questions.
Mayor.
Yeah, I was going to see if we can get, I guess it'd be the traffic study gentleman up. And I apologize, I did not get your name, either Matt or Shane and also the other gentleman. So obvious. Go ahead. And what was his name, just so I can make sure
I
we
was
have
going to say, we've got Jonathan Smith with HDR that's going to defer to on all traffic and roadway questions. He's been running point for us on the traffic side. And like the commissioner said, we're working through these issues, and we've got a meeting with the state next week with the development. And with that, I'll hand it over to Jonathan.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we're going through the process right now with Civil Site. They're revising their traffic study based on some comments from staff, and it's just part of the process. It's an iterative process sometimes with these traffic studies to respond to comments, get it fine-tuned. That way we can come back to you with the technical recommendations on the development and on the study.
Okay. And so the question I was wanting to figure out, because I know that there was a lot of concern, obviously you're going to be coming back to the board here. Like there's the light that, that Commissioner Justice worked really hard to get right there at South Green Hill. And obviously there is some concern there. So during this report, because again, the roads don't line up over there, during your report, do you plan on getting like a long-term, traffic study out there? Is there any type of, because again, you're talking 3 major businesses in this area, as I discussed during one of the meetings, there was some concern about, traffic as well as coming in and out. So I just want to kind of see like how far, I guess, how far back are you going to be going with this, the traffic study that we've done in the past to where we are today? I guess really what I'm looking for, because I know with the light study that we've done, I think there was a couple past studies that was put out there for the light that was installed. And then of course, where we are going to be presenting with these new businesses. So are you taking all that into factor? Can you go into more detail on where you're collecting all this data?
The developer's engineer does the traffic study. We review the traffic study. We're meeting with them to revise the parameters of the study based on the previous one that was done and the changes in their site plan. But it's their responsibility to do their own traffic study. We are looking at the opening year based on what they've shown. 2027 is when they project that everything will be open as far as constructed, certificates of occupancy, all that. We also probably going to look about 10 years past that to see how it operates 10 years in the future, make sure what we build or what they build is sufficient at that time. But we do include with all of the development traffic studies, the background growth that's gone on in the area, what is known to be in the pipeline for development, nearby developments, things like that. So we try to bring all of those studies together to get a good overview of what's going on in the area. Plus, their engineer collects field data to understand what the actual real life traffic is out there, along with the field observations. So that all is part of what goes into the traffic study, along with the safety analysis to understand what's happening out there collision wise. This is a more sensitive area. I think I'll just put it that way, since there is a high school there. It's a higher profile area sometimes when we look at young drivers, school buses, pedestrians, potentially bicyclists. It heightens some of what we look at in some cases. So we have asked them, and their traffic engineer has agreed to add some components that wouldn't normally be part of a traffic study to address the safety concerns. They are working through that. We've got a version 2 that we're reviewing right now. We received it last week. Yeah, so we received their version 2 last week. We're not done with the review yet, but we're going through the process right now.
Have we got any support with the schools? Have we reached out to the school there and see what they had, any type of input on this? Did the developers do that, or
you
did
would
the
have
city?
to speak to the developer about that.
Okay. Because I know that's one of the biggest thing that this board has always talked about, which is anytime that we bring in businesses or either, more development, within areas like, well, how's this going to affect the school? Well, this is right here. This is right on the property. And obviously it's prime market. I will say that. I mean, I'd love for these businesses to be a little bit up the road or something, but right in front of a school, obviously they got a great market with, with the, burgers and everything else. But at the same time, it's just, there's a lot of stuff going on right there and I just don't see it. So obviously, I'm interested to see what this study is going to bring back and go from there. So thank you.
Yes, sir.
Guess a procedural question if this passes here tonight, it would come back on the 22nd, but this has also got to come back to the Planning Commission because the traffic study wasn't ready for the Planning Commission. That's already been voted on. The Planning Commission's on the 18th. The agendas for second reading are going to go out on the 17th of April. If there's any issues with the Planning Commission, is that going to be problematic for us hearing second reading? Assume it passes tonight on the 22nd of April.
If there's a problem on the 17th at the Planning Commission,
But they've already approved it.
yeah. So it can always be pulled or deferred on the 22nd,
Okay.
April 22nd.
Commissioner Mullally, did you have something?
I did.
You're recognized.
Okay. Under the actual ordinance itself, and then is this printed version of the plan the most updated one?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. On page 41, which is under the ordinance at the bottom under planning and zoning, I have a concern on the number of pumps because I know that planning said that the size of the lot really didn't support more than 4, and it also didn't support a convenience store over 5,000 square feet. So I had a concern with the number of pumps, but I do see that it was approved at the Planning Commission. I don't see anything else in the ordinance, though, about the 5,000 square feet for the convenience store. Did they approve to go over that as well? They did? Okay. Number 13, I know there was a question, will there only be one set of dumpsters on site? And I only see one set. Will that be the case?
I do traffic signals.
Okay. I don't know who to ask.
I think I can speak to that. So this is conceptual since it's
Yeah.
preliminary. So when they come in as individual site plans, they'll have to be able to, take care of their refuse, and we'll be looking at that then.
Okay. It just seemed like a lot of area just for that one.
That won't
Okay.
fly.
It's written in the ordinance with a question mark.
Number 13.
Yes. I guess it was, getting information from them at this preliminary stage, but the answer is no, they'll have to have per site will have to have their own.
More.
Yeah.
So the plan will be revised
Yeah.
by second reading. Okay. Number 15, it says elevations for each site shall be complementary to the other. The elevations for the proposed auto wash seems out of place. So I wondered about that. And then I go down and read 20, and it says close off the westernmost entrance and remove the use of the car wash and oil change. So since I'm not seeing either one of those on the plan, was this a way to remedy number 15?
I believe they've removed the auto wash. This is the first version of this plan it was quite different and it had that on there. So those can be, they're moved at this point since they're not on there. And then I think the question for, the elevations, again, that's site plan that'll be reviewed in detail, but we were just hoping to get, some variety, so it doesn't look so uniform and, just put it out there at this initial stage that when we get those site plans, we're going to be looking, scrutinizing them for appearance and cohesiveness and all that,
Okay, number 23, it says add striping and crosswalks as shown on the red lined plan, which I don't see any color, but I do have a question about the crosswalk on page 43 of the ordinance, where it talks about further north up there at Needmore. There's going to be additional push button crosswalk signals and warning beacons. I was concerned about the one further south at the front parking lot. There's a crosswalk that crosses over there across from the front parking lot.
The planning commission had several comments from the table, and our advice to them was we will pass those on, but the traffic study should dictate the design of the transportation system. So a lot of their comments were preliminary. All this is still preliminary. It's still being fleshed out into design. So some of these comments that you have were in response to what was going on that night at the Planning Commission, and also what staff had seen on the previous submittal. But we're looking at all these transportation items as the study comes back in, and then whenever site plan and construction drawings come in and this final engineering design is completed, we will be involved in that deeply.
Okay, just one more question. It has to do with the sidewalk. Is there currently a sidewalk southbound on the west side of North Green Hill Road that goes along the back side of the fire station that will connect to this development? Is there a sidewalk there behind the fire hall already?
Yeah.
There is? Okay. All right. That was my other question. Okay, that's
right.
all.
Well, I'm going to move under planning and zoning to strike number 13 and 16 under that. 13 says, will there only be one set of dumpsters on site with a question mark? I'm going to move that we remove that. And then number 16 reads, grammar check note 18. So I don't know that we need to capture those in the ordinance. But if there is a suggestion, maybe on second reading, to come back, if we need to codify something here in the ordinance about the dumpsters, I'd like to hear it on second reading, but I'm going to move that we strike 13 and 16. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second on that. Any questions and comments on those? All in favor of striking 13 and 16, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those two are removed, and accordingly, the rest of those will be renumbered. Any questions and comments on this? All right. Vice Mayor.
Sorry to be so vague earlier. I'm trying to pull this all together again up here. So just to recap, you're going to come back with the information from the study that Commissioner Justice did on the light down the street based off of that study. Because I want to make sure we look at the traffic study from past, because that gives us a baseline. That's why we put those lights there down on South Green Hills all the way back up to North Green Hill. I like to see this study. And I'm also going to be wondering, again, how this developer is going to be able to handle, again, Providence with Chick-fil-A, I see the traffic design. They do a great job. My daughter actually works there. It's still a mess up there with the traffic. I'm just trying to see how we're going to be able to have freshmen coming into the school, fighting this traffic along with Chick-fil-A and then Waffle House. And then of course the gas station. I'm just really having a hard time just even picturing all this mess here during the beginning of the school year. And then I think about the nightmare that our police department has, they had to help clean up a lot of the mess as well. So, when you come back with the traffic study, I in my opinion, again, I have a hard time leaving it up to the developer. That's why we have staff. And, anytime the developer can tell you, hey, it's going to be, ice cream and pretty balloons, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's how they get projects to, be positive recommendations. But in reality, the citizens get stuck with dealing with, congestion. Our police department gets bombarded with having to clean up the mess at the end of the day. So I really want to make sure that our staff and the folks that we're bringing in to please do your due diligence, look at the actual information, and just don't go off of the report of our developer.
That was Commissioner Trevette, that was the emphasis of bringing this in as a 25,000 foot view of what the developer is working on right now to want efficiently bring the project along, but they are clearly aware that this will not come before any public body until city staff, TDOT, and the developer are all on the same page what they plan to present you for scrutiny with the facts. So like I said, the next time this will come back is completed to the planning commission per that meeting as Commissioner Hefner had recommended that night. And we will make sure that that is taken care of. You know, like Jonathan was saying, it's part of the transportation system. It's not only cars. With the school, pedestrian traffic is also going to be probably just as much as equal, or if not greater than a emphasis for us to make sure, as Commissioner Justice has said, that we create a free-flowing site that's safe and traffic-wise is efficient on the system that's out there existing, as well as what's being proposed, to make sure that everybody is as safe as we can make it. At the same time, we're realizing that there are young drivers, old drivers, and everything in between that we have to put together as a puzzle piece. So we're doing that right now. And like I said, we're going to make sure we take our time, do it right, make sure the state, the state's going to have a big say in this as well, since it's off their road. But we won't be bringing this back until we're all on the same page. Planning Commission first, then back to you guys.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Sonic is a prime example for the middle school up there from Mount Juliet. From Mount Juliet Middle School. Sonic is a prime example over there next to the parks. It is a cluster with students, and that's great. It's given them an opportunity to hang out as friends, and the foot traffic is amazing for, the restaurant as well as the students to be able to have that camaraderie. I love it. But at the same time, we're talking about Lebanon Road. And also, my also concern, Commissioner Mullally also brought up, was the back connecting road. There's going to be a lot of folks now trying to utilize that to get into school. And right now, I've seen it many times. Folks cut it by just a couple seconds of getting T-bone because you're whipping in there on that side street just to be able to get in, to be able to make that versus make the light, another 200-300 feet down. So it's going to be all brought up. So these are things that this board is obviously very concerned about. And just please do our due diligence and not leave it up to just the developers. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Hefner.
Yeah, I just want to, and Shane, thanks for pointing that out. It was my suggestion to vote on this, not defer it at the Planning Commission, because it would have delayed it a month, and then it would come back to the Planning Commission and comes to the BOC. So this is not of any fault of the developers. They were completely fine, I'm sure, I'm speaking on your behalf, to had deferred another month to go back to the Planning Commission. So I do want to point that out as important to know, because you keep making statements about developers and don't leave it up to them. So this was not their suggestion. This was mine, because I knew it was going to be a 2-meeting reading at the BOC. It was going to have to go back to the Planning Commission. We were very reluctant to vote on this, not having the traffic study, but we thought in the interest of moving this forward to go ahead and pass it with a recommendation, positive or negative, to the BOC for this first reading. So I just want to make that point. It was nothing the developers were trying to shortcut or fast track. That was just a suggestion. So I just want to make that point.
Commissioner Mullally.
Just one more question. I know that planning wanted the gas pumps to go on the other side of the store, away from Lebanon Road. I'm assuming that if this is the most updated plan, I'm assuming.
I did not get that.
Huh.
Couldn't achieve that with that wasn't received with any support from the applicant. So we do ask that on all gas stations where it makes sense. Yes. There's nothing in the code that requires it, so we're just asking.
So you're still asking?
We would continue. Yeah.
Okay.
Commissioner Justice.
I want to make sure that we understand a couple of things. First of all, I'm not an engineer. I think we've all established the fact that we're not engineers up here. I'm not an architect. I'm not even a planner. So, we have to be careful when we get up here not to start trying to impose our thoughts and our leanings onto the developer. That we've got staff and they've got regulations that they go by. Then we've got the state, and they have to get everything approved at the state because it's on the state road. So, we have traffic plans. I was in a meeting recently with them, and their traffic, the lady doing the traffic work was there. Same you were in, and she'll be coming back with a recommendation based on the new information. But, as far as turning buildings around and elevations and what we think is prettier, I've said this numerous times when I hear people on the planning commission go, well, I think it's an aggravation to me. Their job is to make sure that things are done to a degree based on the ordinances that we passed. So, I think and I feel those aren't good statements. Those are not proper statements. What you think and what you feel really has no bearing. Just what the ordinances say and the book says. So we've got to be careful, me included, going out here and trying to impose our thoughts on these guys. The state of Tennessee is going to tell us what we can and cannot do based on recommendation coming from the traffic plan that our experts will bring in. I look at what we went through with Providence, and I think I was heard very clearly. I want to do everything we could do to avoid that mess that we've got south of the interstate. Start talking about Providence and thunder strikes. You hear that, right? That's not what I want in my district. Miss Jessica Gore was our public works director at one point, and she made the comment that she could feel it when she drove across the interstate coming from the south to the north side. She could actually breathe. And I'll never forget her making that comment, because that actually was a very good description of, that I had heard numerous times in different ways, but that was very adequate description. I want to make sure that when the development is done, we can still breathe over here, and it doesn't look or feel like what we've had to endure south of the interstate.
All right. All in favor of the ordinance on first reading, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That carries on first reading, and we will hear it in 2 meetings for second reading.
2 meetings or 2 weeks?
We have to skip a meeting.
Okay.
12B has been deferred at said agenda. 12C is an ordinance to amend the fiscal year 2023-2024 budget ordinance 2023-2024 to create a deputy director position for the Mount Juliet Parks Department and transfer the funds for the salary. Motion is second. Any questions or comments? All right. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? 12C carries on first reading. 12D, an ordinance to amend the fiscal year 2023-2024 budget ordinance 2023-24 to transfer funds for legal fees from the finance department to the executive department.
Second.
Motion is second. 12D is on the floor. Questions or comments? Commissioner Mullally.
All right. Just to bring the people up to date, this stems from the Ethics Commission attorney that was hired to oversee the ethics complaint process that started last fall. We had $10,000 in the budget for such an event, and this is for an additional $3,000 in attorney fees. The first set of charges weren't invoiced; they were just on a spreadsheet. And then we didn't have the last invoice, which was to cover this $3,000 is for, until right before the meeting today. Personally, I have my name is on here and charged for correspondence through email, which took me several attempts to even get an answer for, but I have issues with that. Personally, I have a problem with paying additional fees to this attorney, Mr. Farmer, for his role here in the city. From what I saw, it was just a terrible process from the very beginning, starting with the secret meetings that weren't called secret meetings, but they were because they weren't before the public. It concerns me that Mr. Farmer, with all his credentials and his 40-plus year history of being an attorney, did not comply with the Open Meetings Act. From the beginning, the lack of communication with Mr. Farmer was a major struggle. I don't feel that he was fully engaged throughout the whole process. When my initial appointee to the Ethics Commission resigned, I made 3 attempts to get an answer from Mr. Farmer regarding the replacement procedure since an ethics commission meeting was upcoming. I know that he didn't bother reading my email because that contained vital information about my replacement, because his final reply, asked for the same information that I had already provided. This was a continual thing, yet he charged the city for it. He billed for a request I made on 3 separate occasions over the course of 4 months regarding Commissioner Hefner's relationship with his appointee, Yancey Belcher. To this day, I've never received an answer from Mr. Farmer, yet he charged the city for it. During the public ethics meeting on 2/21, Mr. Farmer injected personal opinion. He was there for legal advice and legal opinion, not personal opinion. And when I called him out for it, he said that he would continue injecting opinion. Legal opinion gives direction. Personal opinion influences. And I don't feel that was right. This was, again, a public meeting. We have no idea what opinions he may have given during the secret meetings that possibly could have had substantial influence. During the public meeting, he said this case was, quote, ridiculous and expensive and totally unnecessary, saying this was a burden by keeping on and on, that we needed to get beyond this pettiness. He also made the comment, quote, I sincerely hope we can dispose of this tonight. He was often confused at times, even saying, this wasn't based on city business, was it? When of course it was. Also, he said, the mayor is not a commissioner, even though, of course, he serves on the board of commissioners. He said, Commissioner Hefner was not a commissioner at the time he purchased the property, was he? And yes, of course he was. At the public ethics meeting, Mr. Farmer admitted he erred and took full responsibility for not holding the meetings in public last fall, which ended up costing the city additional time and money. I fully believe that had the meetings been held in public last fall, the whole thing would have been resolved at that time. I personally do not feel that this extra $3,000 is warranted. And I personally will not be voting on this budget amendment.
Vice Mayor Trevette.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Marquetti, I'm just kind of curious. So if we open this up to pay this attorney, do we have to pay all the other volunteers, or is this a volunteer position? How does this work? Just to kind of bring me up to speed a little bit.
Mr. Farmer was chosen by the Ethics Commission pursuant to the Ethics Code after I recused myself. So these are the fees that he incurred as an appointed official by the Ethics Commission. And I also ran this by Yancey Belcher, who was the chair of the Ethics Commission, as well as Sam English previously, about what is their opinion on this. And they said, yes, he should be paid. He had a very difficult situation, as demonstrated by the, 6.5 hour conference that disposed of all of them. Also, regarding the, quote, secret meeting, close quote, that was deducted from his statement of about $1,500. I think it's 4.5 hours at $325 an hour. So that was deducted. So there was no, quote, paying twice for the same work.
And then the last question, if you don't mind, did he, did he have any type of follow-up based off of the concerns that the commissioner had with the emails and phone calls, or was there any type of discussion on that? Do you know of?
I don't know. Okay. I had 987 emails, and I was recused. So I can imagine how many Mr. Farmer had. I know there were several hours that he did not bill for, just looking at conversations that I had with him and that Yancey Belcher and other commission members had with him that he didn't charge for.
Okay.
Mr. Marquetti, I was, and I may have misunderstood, but I was thinking that you had said it actually did not exceed the 10,000. Did it, or did it not?
His total bill was close to 15,000,
Mhm.
and then there were
14,850 or something like that. And then they deducted $1,485, I believe.
Okay,
it's
so
about
there's a deduction.
$13,000 total.
Okay, and the $3,000 that we're talking about, we're not talking about increasing in a line item. We're actually just moving it from one line item to another one. Is that correct, Ms. Hire? Okay, so all we're doing is just, we're doing an accounting process by vote.
Yes.
That's what I'm saying. Okay. I will, Mayor, I apologize, but I will say, as far as the way the whole thing was conducted, I don't necessarily agree with, but I'm not going to sit here and say Mr. Farmer was not due his money. He put his time in, and if we've got an issue, then we don't rehire him, for other things in the past. But if he put his time in, and Mr. Marchetti and the city manager and Ms. Iyer say that that's what needs to happen, then I'm going to go along with him in this case and say it needs to happen. So.
Right. Well, I've got numerous issues, but we should pay our bills. Any other questions or comments? All right. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right. Passes by a vote of 4-1. The next item is 12E, an ordinance to define the procedure for proposing charter amendments. I have a motion and a second. I'll take just a moment to speak on this. The city charter is our founding document. It's the bedrock at which everything the city operates on. You can almost compare it to the same equivalent of the Constitution, maybe, for the state as their founding documents, or even at the federal level on this. My problem with the proposals for charter amendments is 12D, it basically follows the same steps that we just did on 12D. We did an ordinance to move $3,000 around, and the way our charter procedures right now are proposed follow the exact same process. An ordinance passed once, passed twice, and it goes out there. I started looking around, saying, what else are we seeing with others as far as amending their founding documents? And I've seen this process abused before, or at least weaponized might be a better way to say than abused. But I know in 2010, we saw the first charter amendment passed, and it disqualified the mayor immediately upon passage. And that one was ran right before an election. In 2020, we saw the same thing, a charter amendment proposed right before the election to disqualify or make it difficult for somebody else to run for a position. And so I started looking at the state model, and I'm going to read you what the Tennessee General Assembly goes through. The General Assembly has to pass a resolution on 3 separate readings over 3 separate days, and they have to get an absolute majority vote. And if that passes on 3 readings over 3 separate days with an absolute majority vote, the amendment for the proposed change to the state constitution is posted 6 months before the next election. Then after the next election, with a new General Assembly, it is read 3 more times on 3 separate days, and this time it requires a 2/3 majority of vote. And if those pass 3 times with a 2/3 majority vote, it goes out to the next general election to be with the governor's election, next general election that the governor appears on. And there they allow a maximum of 4 amendments to be heard during that time period. And one of the questions that come up here tonight is would we vote on it once, then it go to referendum, and then we would hear it again? No, I'm not trying to change the fact that it's being brought by an ordinance, which would require 2 readings before it goes to the ballot for consideration as a referendum. Essentially, all I'm doing is splitting first reading and second reading across an election there, and that just simply takes out the ability to do the political gotchas. Or it also, if the public feels strongly on that, they have an opportunity to change some of the board members out on it as well. So that's the reason why I'm proposing this. I think our charter is just too essential to our city here to follow the exact same steps as the $3,000 budget ordinance to consider considerations. That's my summary on that. Commissioner Hefner.
Thank you, Mayor. I think there's a slight difference between passing a $3,000 amendment. I think we just demonstrated 3 out of the 5 votes just passed. We just demonstrated also tonight where we have a procedure in place on referendums, and that referendum died. It also died at the last BOC meeting where the referendum was amended several times and it failed. So we have the mechanisms, we have the procedures in place, requires 2 readings, which also requires 4 out of the 5 members to vote on it and pass it. So we have procedures in place today. We demonstrated tonight that those procedures worked. Whether I was pleased with the outcome or not is irrelevant. And we did it again, at the last BOC meeting. We had a referendum. It was amended, went back for a second reading, and it failed. So we have procedures in place and they work. So I don't know why we should change what's worked here just within the last couple of meetings.
Commissioner Justice.
I've got some similar questions about this. One of the things you said you were splitting the vote between the election is what you were attempting to do. Is that what I heard?
Yes. First reading before and second reading after.
I see a danger in that. The first danger being, okay, we're going to vote for it. It passes to put it on a referendum. The second vote fails after it's already been on the ballot. Is that what you're saying?
No.
So explain that to me again, please.
Just first reading occurs before the election. There's no action taken at that since the ordinance can't pass without second reading. The second reading would then occur after the election. After second reading has been ratified, then it would go to the election for a referendum. Or the referendum will go to election.
It would be the next election, though.
Correct.
So 4 years or 2 years.
2 years.
That's making my hair hurt just thinking about all this.
I don't mean to hurt anyone's hair.
We've got a founding document, as you said, it's called Tennessee State Constitution, and that Tennessee State Constitution is actually what allowed our municipality to be created to begin with, and allowed for the statute to be created through the State General Assembly, and that is what we've got. We had a vote, and that vote that we had that allowed home rule established us the ability to change the charter. It sounds like we're playing games, and I'm not really up on the rules, to be perfectly honest with you. I'm not comfortable with this at all at this point without this going through a lot of legal scrutiny. I'm going to ask Ashley for just one meeting. If we could defer this so that we could get some.
Well, this is just first reading.
Yeah, we've done that before. And it's been shoved through 3 to 2 numerous times. I expect that's what will happen tonight, I'm assuming. But I think probably, we should probably get the Attorney General's opinion on how this should work.
All right. Anyone else?
Motion to defer one meeting.
Have a motion to defer one meeting? Have a second? Any questions or comments on the advisement of deferral? All in favor of deferring for one meeting, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Nay.
I'll put my crystal ball up now.
Commissioner Mullally.
I do have a question. So say if what you're saying, when the first reading takes place and the second reading, if something is brought in 4 out of the 5 vote on it, but it's not in an election year, say if the election is, say, the next year, would second reading still have to wait, until the actual election?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and this is following the Tennessee State Constitution is where I got the model for this from. And we have the ability to set our rules for how we do things. And Commissioner Justice.
So the Tennessee Constitution says to split the vote. Is that what you just told me?
I am telling you that the Tennessee Constitution lays out the way that the General Assembly sends state state amendments out,
Okay.
or amendments to the state constitution out.
How about we compare our ethics ordinance to the state's ethics ordinance and see how those are apples and apples? I don't believe you're going to find it's apples and oranges, and I don't know why we're picking and choosing which pieces that we want to compare. And that's exactly what we just did.
Well, we can't do by state law what the state can do on their ethics ordinance. If you recall, they had some problems and they got so mad about the problems with a certain senator that they tighten the screws on us instead. So they have that ability as being a higher authority.
But let's just don't compare apples to oranges and tell everybody it's just apples to apples. That's disingenuous. And just not a good.
So it's disingenuous to say I got this model from the state constitution.
I'm not sure which part of the state constitution you got that it would be splitting the vote and makes that an accurate comparison.
Well,
Because that's not mentioned in the Constitution of the state of Tennessee, I can assure you.
the General Assembly passes a resolution on 3 separate readings across 3 different days with an absolute majority. Then it's posted for 6 months before the next election. After the next election, the new General Assembly will have 3 more readings with a 2/3 majority vote across 3 different readings before going to a referendum.
Again, you're talking about the General Assembly versus the city of Mount Juliet.
And I've made that really clear.
Okay, then don't say it's apples to apples. Then it's different.
I wasn't even discussing fruit, just the
Okay.
procedure for amending the charter.
We can have a fruit discussion on another day, but I don't want you misleading the citizens of Mount Juliet to get
No
your.
one's trying to mislead the citizens.
Well, that generally happens. So it's happening tonight.
I think the only one trying to mislead the citizens is trying to put words in my mouth, but
Well,
that's
you just said
beside
them,
the
not me.
point. All in favor of the ordinance, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That passes with a vote of 3-2. The next items is a resolution approving a supplement to an agreement between the city of Mount Juliet, Tennessee and WSP USA Incorporated for the design of Old Lebanon Dirt Road widening project and authorize the mayor to sign the agreement. 13B, a resolution approving agreement by the city of Mount Juliet, Tennessee for on-call debris removal, disposal, and debris monitoring services and authorize the mayor to sign the agreement.
Second.
Motion is second. Questions or comments on the consent items? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Consent passes. Resolution 14A, a resolution approving the sales agreement for the city of Mount Juliet to sell approximately 29.7 acres of land identified as map 54 parcel 8,203 Tomlinson property located in the city of Mount Juliet, Wilson County, Tennessee, and authorize the city manager to sign the agreement.
Motion.
A motion and a second. 14 A's on the floor. Any questions or comments? Commissioner Rolletti?
This is, what is it? 800 something thousand. I don't have the paper in front of me. Is there any idea at this point where that money would go or what the city would do with it?
Commissioner Justice?
When the discussion initiated, the discussion was that it was purchased with parks money. Is that correct, Ms. Dana? And so it has to go back into the Parks and Recreations Fund. Now, go ahead, I'm sorry. I have a question about this also.
No, go ahead.
Okay. Mayor, the conversation that I had with Toll Brothers was not, did you say 800,000? Yeah, the conversation that I had with Toll Brothers was $1 million, not 891,000.
All right.
And that is market value for this piece of property and the size of the property and the equitable market. So that needs to be $1 million. It does not need to be $891,000. That is my motion to amend.
Motion to amend the sales price to $1 million. Is there a second? I got a second on that. Any questions or comments on amending of the sales price to $1 million? All in favor of the amendment, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Back on the ordinance, or excuse me, the resolution is once amended. Any other questions or comments? Vice Mayor?
I'm not quite for sure. I'm gonna direct this question to, so it's maybe some of the, I guess the different departments in the audience here tonight, and I appreciate you guys all sticking around. So this is actually for, that was donated, or we purchased this land. Can somebody bring me up to speed on this? Because I know there was some discussion about this, and now the developer is wanting it back to add more properties so they can meet their 20% or 10% requirements. Is that how this is working? But let's see what Mr. Martin says first, if that's okay, just so we can kind of be up to speed.
Yes, so the city originally bought this property. It was quite a few more acres at the time. Previous developer bought some of the property and it got converted to a subdivision, or it's being built on now. And at that point, they were going to build a parking lot and a restroom facility, a trailhead. And then that remaining acreage is going to be turned into basically a passive park because of the topography of the land. And it's just been sitting idle because we were focused on other things, police department, fire department. It was bought for just future parks land. And the Toll Brothers approached the city about purchasing. I think they had an independent conversation with Commissioner Justice, so I wasn't a part of that original conversation, but this is a contract we've been working on for several months. We just kept deferring it because we had other things that were more of a priority. We got the contract language worked out, but I'm glad that Commissioner Justice mentioned that because that was never brought up to me about amending it to that number.
So did we get this land appraised?
We did originally.
I mean, how long ago?
It's been a while.
So, I mean, I honestly, I'd really like, because we just went through this just a couple of meetings back where, the city went ahead and purchased a lot of, we spent a lot of money for a little bit of land. Let's just say that. And land does not just populate for the city without a large expense. So I would really like to maybe just defer this, maybe just for however long you think, if it's 30 days, to go ahead and at least be able to get an appraisal done on this. I mean, if we spend $2,000-$3,000 for appraisal, whatever that amount is, and we come back and we find out this land's worth 1.5, 1.7, I think that's going to help the parks and also help, the parks budget to be able to move forward with some other projects. So I think it's in the commission's best interest to be looking at this. So again, I want to make a motion to defer it So how long would it take to do an appraisal these days for this land?
I think since it's just raw land, there's no buildings or structures on it, it could probably be less than 30 days, hopefully.
So if we deferred it for 30 days, we can get that number back. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
That'd be great. Okay.
So motion to defer 30 days and for the city to perform an appraisal. Okay. Is there a second for that? Not hearing one, Vice Mayor.
Okay. All right. Just want to double check.
Oh, this property is primarily what's left of it. I think after talking to the parks director, and he's not here, so I don't want to run the risk of putting words in his mouth, but I believe what he expressed to me was it was largely unusable for parks due to, I guess, water or this. And I'm assuming the developer intends to use it for green space. That's just assuming.
Yes, sir. And they're here tonight as well if the commission wants to call on them. We do have a representative here.
Yep.
If that helps.
Well, I would like to hear from representative.
Good evening. My name is Mike Burton. I work for the company Toll Brothers.
All right. And what's the intention for the property, or do you plan to build on this?
Additional residential units.
And you can build on this?
We can. Based on our preliminary due diligence work, we believe that we can obtain about 33 home sites on there. And if I may, just the Tomlinson Point community was initially rezoned for 218 units. And through value engineering and some issues that related to streams and wetlands and things like that, the community is now 192 units. So these 33 only add back 7 additional units from the original entitlement.
Okay.
And is this purchase contingent upon modification of the PUD?
It requires a modification of PUD or a new PUD. as a condition to close. However, I don't want to give you guys legal advice here, counsel or here. But there's a provision in here. We need to achieve 33 lots.
Okay. Commissioner Justice.
The property that we're talking on, talking about the additional property over there, how many lots are you going to be able to get on the additional property?
We think 33.
33? Okay, so, and how many acres exactly was that?
29.7. So it's just a little over 1 an acre.
I was going to say just a little over RS 40.
Yeah.
So
RS 20. RS 20 PUD.
Well, 1 per acre is RS 40.
Yes, a lot of the area will be open space.
Oh, okay. All right. So are you going to reopen the PUD?
I think we would probably consider filing a new PUD for this particular piece.
Okay.
But we would work that out with staff as to the best manner in which to process.
Okay. And for Mayor, for Commissioner Trevette to know what happened on that, there was actually, it was 54 acres initially that was purchased, and the initial purchase from the city of Mount Juliet was, excuse me, 975,000. Then, if I'm not mistaken, Beezer or somebody turned around. Toll Brothers purchased that back from the city, or purchased their initial portion back for what, 400 and.
I think it was more than that. I think it was pretty close to the initial purchase price.
The
that
970
the city paid.
At the 975 is what y'all paid the city.
I don't know the exact number, but my recollection is that it's closer to that number than it is 400,000 or 500,000.
Okay,
I
so
can pull it up if you'd like.
So then we get another million out of this. Then you're looking at property that we paid 975 for, and we're getting approximately 2 million out of. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And what's the year, Tom?
Sorry.
What's the year span?
2
years?
2 or 3.
I think it was 2020 or 2019, somewhere in there. But it's but we've sold a portion of that since. So I don't know if you're
That
asking
was in
for
the fall of 20.
Excuse me.
Fall of
21.
21. When
The
we
3
sold,
years.
we sold that top portion of the lot. Well, say top from north down of the lot to you for development.
Correct.
So, All right, Commissioner Hefner.
I believe there was a restroom that was going to be built on that park. Restroom and a road. Are you still planning to put, I mean, there's not going to be a park there, so what?
Correct. I think that would be worked out through the PUD process.
Okay, that's what I was thinking as well, but I just wanted to point that out because I know there was a requirement to put a restroom there for the park and the road, so.
Well, I think you're going to have to wind up amending your existing PUD to take that out.
Yeah.
Are you going to be required to put a restroom in the middle of your development?
Yeah.
If that helps with the decision making.
I think between us and staff, we'll figure out the appropriate manner in which to process the entitlement and address the matter of the bathroom facility in the parking lot.
Mr. Martin.
Mayor, all great questions tonight and consideration. This was just an opportunity to meet with the Parks Director and some feedback from the commissioners over the time we've had the property. Michael's been great to work with. Toll Brothers has been class act. He's been very patient with me because I've deferred this internally several times just because we had more pressing things. So I want to thank him publicly for his patience with us, and we can do everything the commission desires for us to do here.
Mr. Justice.
When you and I initially talked, you talked about the closing would have to be pushed down the road a little bit to make it feasible for you to be able to do
Correct.
this. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Does that continue? I haven't looked at the contract.
This is their due diligence period. Basically, it's 15 months, I believe, but Michael.
15 or 18?
Our due diligence period is 3 months, and then we'll exit due diligence post the deposit, and then we have 12 months from there on to close.
Got it. Very good.
All right, any other questions or comments? All in favor of the resolution, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Resolution passes. 14B, which is the header is initial bond resolution. Motion, and I'll second. Mr. Martin, it's under your sponsorship.
Yes, sir. And I have Miss Dana here, and I'll get her to come up to the mic, the expert in-house.
I've been waiting all night for this. Okay, so what you have before you is an initial bond resolution. This is sort of the beginning process of the borrowing. What I'm suggesting is to do a $35 million bond. That's $30 million for the PD headquarters and $5 million for the fire hall. But the language we put in there can also be used for road projects, just in case something happens and we need it for that. That's just to protect the city. This can be amended if you don't want to borrow for the fire hall, or if you don't want to borrow, you can amend this. But what this does is it starts the process, because once you pass this, then we will post it in the paper for 20 days, and the citizens have an opportunity to protest it if they want to. Next, once you pass this, you've said it, we'll come back next meeting with a detailed bond resolution that has all of the details in it. So it's on you if you want to do the 35, the 30. And I'm recommending a 15-year. The rates right now, we're getting 5.33 for our money in the bank, and we can borrow at probably 3.15, but it will go to market and be bid on. Lowest bidder wins.
Commissioner Justice.
We had talked before, and there are some restrictions, some time restrictions, and then once we've established this, and then we have to have started spending the money by a prescribed date. Is that correct?
Yes. Well, okay. So when you come into a situation like this where we can actually, it benefits us to borrow, where we're going to make money off of this, earn more interest off of this. In order to avoid arbitrage, we have certain deadlines that we have to meet. So you have to spend like 10% of the money within 3 months. And so what we did back before, since we've already started the PD, is we did a refunding resolution. So we've already spent that money, and we passed a resolution that said we are going to pay back the general fund for funds that we've already spent on that. That goes towards those requirements. And since we're already on our way with the PD, I don't see any issues in that having to pay back that extra interest that we get.
Does the refunding include the actual creation of the fire hall? And does that, I mean, we're going to have two resolutions for that?
No, because the refunding resolution included the fire hall as well.
Even though we're not refunding?
Well, if we won't get this money until May, and we can pay ourselves back for any engineering fees.
Okay.
So.
All right. Very good.
Commissioner Ebner.
Was that a blended rate of 5.35%? Or
Sorry, is it a what? Oh, no. Yeah.
Or is that on?
That's in like LGIP.
Yep.
Yeah, they're doing 5.32, and then we have CDs at 5.33 and 5.2.
Okay. And what's the maturity on those? I don't remember.
They
2 and 3 years?
They're all varied.
Right.
No. They're like I think they're 6 months, 18 months. They all vary.
And
there's several of them.
And did we move funds over into the state municipal?
Not yet, because I was getting really good rates with the bank. So, but my intention is to put this, if we do the borrowing and get the money, my intention is to put this with the state.
Okay. Yeah, because I do remember when I was looking into this, the state municipal fund, that was complete. That was liquid.
It is.
So you can actually, you actually can draw funds off of that.
Right.
With a checking account. So to get higher rates, that's liquid versus locking up your money for 2, 3, 5 years in a CD is a better deal for the city.
5.32. Mm-hmm.
And so
I've given you 5.33 of the bank. So there's just been no reason to move it. So I haven't needed to.
It tends to be higher than CDs, but the other benefit on the state side is it's completely liquid. You're not tying your money up for. Now in a down market when interest rates are falling, you want to lock in. It'd be nice to lock in 5.25, 5.5 if rates are going down versus a state municipal fund where those are going to come down monthly because they adjust those rates monthly.
Right. Mhm.
So it just depends on, are you bullish or bearish on where the rates are going? I think they're kind of flattened out a little bit, if not going down
Yeah, they're
slightly.
staying steady at 5.3, 5.2 right
Yeah.
now.
So anyways, but the bottom line is we're making more money than we're borrowing.
Right.
So that's always a good position to be in.
All right. All in favor of the resolution, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Resolution carries. Last item on the agenda is adjournment. Without objection, we're adjourned.